The emergency alarms had been screaming through the Galactic Council station for 3 days straight. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the massive circular chamber, watching as representatives from 47 different species argued, shouted, and gestured wildly at the holographic display floating above the center platform. The display showed something that made her stomach turn. 3 entire colony worlds now silent and dark. Billions of lives, simply gone. The Ka-Rex swarm had awakened. Sarah had read the historical files when she first arrived at the council 5 years ago. The swarm was ancient, a plague that swept through the galaxy once every 10,000 years. They consumed everything, plants, animals, minerals, even the atmosphere itself. Then they went dormant again, hiding in the dark spaces between stars, waiting. The last time they appeared, the galaxy nearly fell. That was 10,000 years ago, and the civilizations that fought them were now dust and legend. Chancellor Vorik of the Rexian Empire stood at his podium, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of command. His scales gleamed purple under the station lights, and his voice boomed through the translation systems. The Rexian Empire commits 500 warships to the defense fleet. We will be the sword that cuts this infection from our galaxy. Cheers erupted from several delegations. The Vrexians were the oldest and most powerful military force in the council. Their ships were massive, their weapons legendary. If anyone could stand against the swarm, it would be them. The Talaxian collective representative, a floating jellyfish-like creature in a containment sphere, pulsed with bioluminescent agreement. The collective pledges our entire defense fleet. 300 vessels will join the Vrexian armada within the week. One by one, the species pledged their forces. The insectoid Clixar promised 200 ships. The crystalline shards, who rarely involved themselves in galactic affairs, committed 100 of their reality-warping vessels. Even the peaceful Lumina, who had not fought a war in 3,000 years, pledged 50 medical frigates and their support craft. Sarah watched the numbers climb on her personal display. 3,000 warships. It was the largest military force ever assembled in recorded history. And still, many in the chamber looked frightened. Chancellor Vorik's eyes, all 6 of them, swept across the chamber until they locked onto Sarah. A cruel smile crossed his face. And what of humanity? The newest members of our council. Surely Earth will contribute to this noble cause. The chamber fell silent. Sarah felt every eye turn toward her. She stood slowly, her simple gray suit looking plain compared to the elaborate armor and ceremonial robes of the other ambassadors. Humans had only been part of the Galactic Council for 50 years, barely a moment in galactic time. Earth had 1 small space station, a few colony ships, and a handful of mining operations in their own solar system. They were the newest, the weakest, the least significant. Humanity will send what we can, Sarah said calmly. Vorik's laugh was like grinding stones. What you can? Do you even have a military fleet, Ambassador Chen? Or will you send your mining barges to fight the swarm? Laughter rippled through several delegations. Sarah kept her face neutral, but her hands clenched into fists at her sides. She had expected this. Humanity was seen as primitive, barely space-capable. The other species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, while humans were still figuring out how to build reliable fusion drives. Earth will contribute according to our capabilities, Sarah repeated. We will not fail in our obligations to the Council. Obligations? Vorik leaned forward on his podium. This is not about paperwork and treaties, human. This is about survival. The swarm does not negotiate. It does not take prisoners. It consumes. If you cannot contribute meaningful forces, perhaps humanity should evacuate to the core worlds and let the real military powers handle this threat. Sarah met his gaze steadily. Humanity has faced extinction before, Chancellor. We know what it means to fight for survival. We will send what is needed. Fine words, Vorik snorted. But words will not stop the swarm. I propose the Council requires each member to contribute forces proportional to their military strength. Humanity has no significant fleet, so they can contribute supply ships and medical support. Leave the fighting to those who know how. Several delegates murmured agreement. Sarah noticed the Talaxian representative pulsing with what she had learned was their version of sympathy. They pitied her. They all did. The motion is noted, the council speaker announced, a being of pure energy contained in a force field. All members must contribute to the defense fleet within 10 standard cycles. Rally Point Sigma has been designated as the gathering coordinates. We will strike at the swarm staging grounds in the Kaharex home system. This is not a vote. This is survival. The session ended with the usual chaos of delegates rushing to coordinate with their home worlds. Sarah remained seated, watching the holographic display cycle through images of the destroyed colonies. Entire cities reduced to organic sludge, ships torn apart and consumed. The swarm was thorough. Her communicator buzzed. A simple text message from Earth, encrypted with the highest security protocols. Indomitable is ready. Awaiting deployment orders, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy thought they knew humanity. They thought humans were weak, helpless newcomers who barely understood the dangers of space. They had no idea what Earth had been preparing for since the day they received the Council's first transmission, 50 years ago. Humanity had learned one important lesson in their long, bloody history: hope for peace but prepare for war, and they had been preparing. She typed a single word in response. Proceed. In 10 days, the galaxy would learn what humanity meant by what we can. Sarah just hoped they were ready for the answer. Rally Point Sigma looked like a sky full of stars, except these stars were warships. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the UHSV Indomitable, watching the massive fleet through the observation windows. 3,217 vessels, according to his tactical display. Dreadnoughts that stretched 5 kilometers from bow to stern, carriers that launched fighter craft by the hundreds, destroyers bristling with weapons that could crack planets. And then there was his ship. The Indomitable was modest by comparison, only 2 kilometers long, with a sleek dark hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. To the gathered armada, it probably looked like a cargo hauler or a science vessel. Marcus supposed that was the point. "Sir, we're receiving multiple hails," Lieutenant Chen reported from the communication station. She wasn't related to Ambassador Sarah Chen, but she shared the same calm demeanor under pressure. Most of them are not friendly. "Put the Council command channel on speaker," Marcus ordered. Chancellor Vorik's voice filled the bridge immediately, dripping with contempt. So humanity finally arrives. One ship, one single ship. This is an insult to the Council and to every species that contributed real forces to this fleet. Marcus kept his voice level. This is the UHSV Indomitable, humanity's contribution to the defense fleet. Requesting fleet integration coordinates and tactical briefings. Your contribution? Another voice joined the channel. Admiral Thex of the Talaxian Collective. He sounded more confused than angry. "Captain Webb, our intelligence shows Earth has several dozen system defense vessels. Why send only one ship to face the greatest threat in galactic history?" "Because one ship is what we can spare, Admiral," Marcus replied. That was technically true. The other ships were needed elsewhere, hidden in shipyards that the galaxy didn't know existed, guarding secrets that humanity wasn't ready to share. This is a violation of treaty. Vorik roared. The Council required proportional contribution. Humanity has failed in its obligation. Marcus rubbed the cybernetic implants at his temples. They were already starting to ache, a side effect of stress and the neural connection they provided. "Chancellor, with respect, we have contributed what is necessary. The Indomitable is fully crewed and combat ready. We're prepared to fulfill whatever role you assign us." "Combat ready?" Vorik's laugh was harsh. "Your ship has no weapons visible on its hull. Our scans show minimal armor plating. What exactly do you intend to fight with, Captain?" Harsh language. Marcus glanced at his tactical officer, Commander Park, who shook his head slightly. The fleet's scanners were good, but not good enough to penetrate the Indomitable's shielding. They saw what Marcus wanted them to see, an unremarkable human vessel, undergunned and unremarkable. "We have our methods, Chancellor," Marcus said. The channel erupted with multiple voices, most of them angry. The Clixar representative accused humanity of cowardice. The Shard delegate suggested Earth should be expelled from the Council. Even the peaceful Lumina expressed disappointment. Finally, Fleet Admiral Korvax of the Rexian Strategic Command cut through the noise. "Enough. The human ship is here, inadequate as it may be. Captain Webb, the Indomitable, is assigned to support Group 7 in the rear formations. You will provide sensor data and medical assistance. Do not engage enemy forces directly. Your ship is not equipped for frontline combat." "Understood, Admiral," Marcus replied, though his jaw tightened. The channel closed with a chorus of dismissive comments. Lieutenant Chen turned in her chair, her expression carefully neutral. They have no idea, do they, sir? That's the point, Lieutenant. Marcus walked to the tactical display table in the center of the bridge. It showed the entire fleet in miniature, blocks of color representing different species formations. Support Group 7 was highlighted in the back, far from the main battle line. Commander Park joined him at the table. It's going to be hard to do our job from back there. We'll manage. Marcus zoomed in on the display showing the Karek system where the swarm had established their staging ground. 12 planets all being stripped for biomass, tens of thousands of enemy signatures. The numbers made his stomach clench. How long until we jump? 18 hours, Park replied. The Council wants to give everyone time to run final checks and coordinate battle plans. Good, that gives us time to prepare Protocol Prometheus. Park's expression shifted to something between excitement and fear. Are we authorized, sir? I thought that was classified above Council level. It was. Ambassador Chen transmitted new orders 3 hours ago. If the situation requires it, we have full authorization. Marcus looked around the bridge at his crew. They were all volunteers, all people who understood what they were getting into. Make sure everyone knows. Once we activate Prometheus, there's no hiding what we are anymore. They're going to be terrified, Lieutenant Chen said quietly. Better terrified of us than dead from the swarm. Marcus pulled up a secondary screen showing the Indomitable's true schematics. Layers within layers. Systems within systems, all of it hidden behind shielding that made the ship look ordinary. Humanity doesn't do half measures. We learned that lesson the hard way over thousands of years of war. If the galaxy wants to see what we've become, we'll show them. The next 18 hours passed in tense preparation. The fleet organized itself into attack formations. Species that had been enemies for centuries now coordinated tactics. The Vrexians took point with their heavy dreadnoughts. The Talaxians formed the carrier groups. The Clixar provided electronic warfare support. It was beautiful in its complexity, 47 different military doctrines somehow working together. And in the back, almost forgotten, the Indomitable waited. Marcus barely slept. He spent the time reviewing every simulation, every contingency plan. Protocol Prometheus had been tested in secret for 20 years, but never in actual combat. Everything relied on the AI cores functioning perfectly under battlefield conditions. If they failed, if the quantum entanglement broke down, if any of 100 different things went wrong, he pushed the thoughts away. Second-guessing now would accomplish nothing. All ships, this is Fleet Admiral Korvax. The announcement came exactly on schedule. Jump to the Karek system will commence in 5 minutes. Remember your oaths. Remember your honor. Today we fight for the survival of civilization itself. Marcus settled into his command chair. The neural interface at his temples activated with a soft hum, connecting him to the ship's systems. He could feel the Indomitable around him waiting ready. All hands battle stations, he ordered. Prepare for FTL transition. And may whatever gods you believe in have mercy on the swarm because we won't. The fleet jumped together, 3,000 ships vanishing in flashes of twisted space-time. When they emerged, they would face hell itself, and the galaxy would finally learn what humanity had brought to the war. The Karek system was a nightmare made real. Reality tore open as 3,000 warships dropped out of FTL, their engines screaming as they decelerated into normal space. Marcus Webb's first glimpse of the system made his blood run cold despite all the simulations and briefings. The tactical displays hadn't captured the true horror of what they faced. 2 stars burned at the system's heart, their light casting everything in shades of orange and red. 12 planets orbited in complex patterns, and every single one was dying. Through the Indomitable's sensors, Marcus could see the surface of the nearest world being stripped away layer by layer. Forests, oceans, mountains, all of it being consumed and converted into the gray-black biomass that fed the swarm. And the ships. God, the ships, tactical count? Marcus asked, though he could already see the numbers climbing on his display. 47,000 contacts and rising, sir, Commander Park reported, his voice tight. They're still building more. The planet designated K-Rex Prime appears to be one massive shipyard. The swarm vessels were biological nightmares. They looked like they had been grown rather than built, all twisted organic curves and pulsing membranes. Some were the size of fighters, others rivaled the Vrexian dreadnoughts. Spines and tendrils covered their hulls, along with openings that Marcus knew would spray acid capable of melting through starship armor. All ships engage. Fleet Admiral Korvax's voice cracked across all channels. For the Council! For civilization! The Allied fleet opened fire and space lit up with weapons fire. Plasma bolts, missile swarms, particle beams, and exotic weapons Marcus didn't even recognize. The front line of Vrexian dreadnoughts unleashed devastation on the nearest swarm formations. For a moment, Marcus felt hope. The first wave of swarm ships simply disintegrated under the combined firepower. Then the rest of the swarm moved. They came like a wave, like a tsunami of biomechanical horror. For every ship destroyed, 10 more took its place. They had no fear, no self-preservation instinct. They simply swarmed forward, accepting losses that would break any normal military force. Vrexian Dreadnought Hammer of Justice is reporting critical damage, Lieutenant Chen called out. Multiple swarm vessels are latching onto its hull. They're eating through the armor. On the tactical display, Marcus watched as a 5-kilometer dreadnought, a ship that could probably crack a moon, was overwhelmed by hundreds of smaller swarm vessels. They attached themselves to its hull like parasites, their acid sprays eating through meters of advanced armor in seconds. The dreadnought's weapons kept firing, destroying dozens of attackers, but it wasn't enough. The Hammer of Justice exploded, taking half a swarm formation with it. Fleet casualties rising, Park reported grimly. 400 ships destroyed in the first hour. Projected losses if this continues. 80% of the fleet within 6 hours. Marcus clenched his fists. Around them, Support Group 7 was trying to maintain formation while providing long-range sensor data and coordinating medical frigates. The Indomitable sat at the back, seemingly useless while the battle raged ahead. Sir, incoming message from Fleet Command, Lieutenant Chen said. Chancellor Vorik is ordering all support vessels to retreat and call for reinforcements. Marcus pulled up the command channel. Vorik's face filled the screen, and for the first time the arrogant Chancellor looked frightened. Support vessels retreat immediately. This battle is lost. We need to preserve what forces we can and— Negative, Chancellor, Marcus interrupted. Vorik's eyes widened. What, Captain Webb, that was an order. We didn't come here to run, Marcus said calmly. His hands moved across his console, entering authorization codes he had hoped he wouldn't need to use. Humanity answers its obligations. Lieutenant Chen broadcast on all channels. Yes, sir. You're live to the entire fleet. Marcus took a breath. All ships, this is Captain Webb of the Indomitable. We're moving to engage the swarm's central formation. I recommend you clear our flight path. Have you lost your mind? Vorik shouted. Your ship has no weapons. You'll be destroyed in seconds. Commander Park, take us forward. Full speed. Yes, sir! Park's hands danced across his controls. The Indomitable's engines flared bright blue, and the ship accelerated past the retreating support group, past the scattered defensive formations, directly toward the thickest concentration of swarm vessels. On the tactical display, Marcus could see the other ships trying to scatter out of the way. The Indomitable wasn't moving like a support vessel anymore. It was moving like a warship, fast and aggressive. They think we're committing suicide, Lieutenant, Chen said quietly. Let them. Marcus felt the neural interface at his temples grow warm as it connected more deeply with the ship's systems. His consciousness expanded, touching systems that most of the crew didn't even know existed. All hands prepare for Protocol Prometheus activation. This is not a drill. The Indomitable plunged into the swarm formation like a knife into flesh. Hundreds of enemy ships immediately converged on it, seeing an easy target. Acid sprays and kinetic spines lashed out, weapons that had destroyed dozens of Allied ships. None of them reached the Indomitable. Activating Protocol Prometheus, Marcus said. Now, the ship's hull began to shift. Armor plates separated along seams invisible to standard sensors. Panels slid aside, revealing bays within bays within bays. The Indomitable wasn't just a ship, it was a carrier, a launching platform for something the galaxy had never seen before. From every opening, small craft emerged. But calling them small craft was like calling a hurricane a breeze. They were autonomous combat drones, each one the size of a fighter but moving with impossible precision. 100 poured out, then 1,000, then 5,000, 10,000 drones emerged from the Indomitable in less than 30 seconds. They moved like a school of fish, like a flock of birds, like a single organism with 10,000 bodies. Each drone was connected through quantum-entangled processors, sharing information instantaneously. They knew what every other drone knew. They learned what every other drone learned, and they were armed with weapons that made even the Vrexian arsenal look primitive. Marcus felt his consciousness spread across the drone network through the neural interface. He wasn't controlling them, the AI was doing that, but he could feel them, guide them, direct the swarm's overall strategy. Humanity's swarm versus the Kaharek's swarm. Let's see which swarm is better, Marcus whispered. The drones engaged, and the battle changed forever. On every Allied ship, crews stopped what they were doing and stared at their sensors. The swarm vessels that had been overwhelming them moments before were now being torn apart by the impossible precision of the human drones. Micro-singularity generators created miniature black holes that swallowed enemy ships whole. Causality disruptors made swarm vessels cease to exist, their timeline simply ending. Nano-disassemblers reduced biological armor to its component atoms. But the real weapon was the AI. For every attack pattern the swarm tried, the drones adapted within microseconds. For every drone destroyed, the collective intelligence absorbed the lessons and distributed them to the remaining units. The swarm's numbers were their greatest strength. Against humanity's AI, it became their greatest weakness. Chancellor Vorik watched from his flagship, his voice barely a whisper on the command channel. By the ancestors.
What are they?
Marcus opened his eyes, his consciousness still distributed across the drone network. They're what humanity does best, Chancellor. They're war. The battle had become something beyond conventional warfare. Marcus Webb sat in his command chair, eyes closed, his consciousness spread across 10,000 autonomous drones like a conductor leading an orchestra of destruction. Through the neural interface, he could feel each unit, their movements, their kills, their deaths. And there were deaths. The swarm was adapting too, though not fast enough. For every 100 enemy ships destroyed, the swarm claimed 3 or 4 drones. But every time a drone fell, its final microsecond of data was transmitted to the collective intelligence. The AI learned from death itself. Swarm Formation Alpha 7 trying a new tactic, Commander Park reported from his station. They're clustering together to create a shield wall with their larger vessels. Marcus could already feel the drones responding. 20 units peeled away from the main engagement, circled around the shield wall at impossible speeds, and hit the formation from behind. The causality disruptors fired, and the swarm vessels simply stopped existing. One moment they were there, the next they were gone, as if they had never been born. The shield wall collapsed. Incredible, breathed Lieutenant Chen. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the Allied fleet. They're asking what they're seeing. Some species don't even have words for this kind of warfare. Marcus opened his eyes briefly. On the main view screen, he could see the battle from the Indomitable's perspective. The human drones moved through the swarm formations like silver fish through water, each movement precise and perfect. Where the swarm relied on overwhelming numbers and biological aggression, the drones used mathematics and perfect coordination. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Vrexian flagship Eternal Glory is under attack, Park called out. Multiple swarm vessels have broken through their defensive screen. Marcus felt the information flow through the drone network. He didn't need to give orders. The AI had already identified the threat and allocated resources. 300 drones diverted from their current engagements and accelerated toward the Vrexian flagship. They arrived in seconds, intercepting the swarm vessels before they could latch onto the dreadnought's hull. Chancellor Vorik's voice came over a private channel, speaking directly to Marcus. For the first time since they had met, there was no contempt in his tone. Captain Webb, you saved my ship. We're all on the same side, Chancellor, Marcus replied, though the effort of speaking while maintaining the neural link made his temples throb. What are those things? Vorik asked. How do they move like that? How do they know where to go? Marcus hesitated. This was the secret Earth had kept for 50 years, the one thing they feared more than the swarm itself. But there was no hiding it now. They're connected through quantum-entangled processors. Every drone shares information with every other drone instantaneously. They operate as a single distributed consciousness. A hive mind? Like the swarm itself? No. The swarm is biological instinct magnified across millions of organisms. Our drones are different. They're controlled by artificial intelligence, machines that think, learn, and adapt faster than any biological brain could. Silence on the channel. Marcus knew what Vorik was thinking, what every species in the galaxy would think. Artificial intelligence was terrifying. A machine that could learn, evolve, and make its own decisions. That was the stuff of nightmares in galactic history. Several civilizations had created AI, and several had been destroyed by their own creations. You built thinking machines, Vorik said slowly, and you weaponized them. Yes. Marcus felt another drone die, its consciousness winking out and its final data integrating into the network. The remaining drones became fractionally better at their jobs. After Earth received first contact from the Council, we knew we were at a disadvantage. We're newer, weaker, fewer in number. We control less space, so we focused on what humanity has always been good at. And what is that? Marcus opened his eyes and looked directly at the screen where Vorik's face was displayed. War, Chancellor. We've been fighting each other for our entire existence. Tribal wars, religious wars, resource wars, ideological wars. For thousands of years, human nations studied how to kill each other more efficiently. When we finally united and joined the galactic community, we brought all that knowledge together. He gestured at the tactical display showing the drones systematically dismantling the swarm formation. Every military force on Earth contributed to the Indomitable project. We pooled our experience. American air superiority doctrine, Russian combined arms theory, Chinese strategic depth, Israeli special operations tactics, and hundreds of other traditions of warfare. Then we fed all of it into the most advanced AI we could build. You created a monster, Vorik said quietly. We created a tool, Marcus corrected, and we've been terrified of it ever since. That's why we only sent one ship. We knew what would happen if the galaxy saw this. Some would fear us. Some would hate us. Some would want the technology for themselves. On the tactical display, the numbers were shifting. The swarm had lost over 30,000 vessels. The Allied fleet losses had stabilized. No new ships destroyed in the past 20 minutes. The drones had formed a defensive perimeter that nothing could penetrate. The swarm is retreating, someone shouted over the general fleet channel. They're breaking off. It was true. The remaining swarm vessels were pulling back from the engagement, fleeing toward the outer system. The AI tracked them through the drone sensors, calculating trajectories and probable destinations. Marcus could feel the network's desire to pursue, to hunt down every last enemy. It would be so easy. All drones hold position, he commanded. The AI obeyed immediately, though Marcus could sense a kind of disappointment in the data streams. The system had been designed to win, and it wanted to complete its objective. But Marcus was still human, still in control. He wouldn't let the AI decide when to stop killing. Fleet status report, he ordered. Commander Park worked his console. Final casualties, 1,847 Allied ships destroyed. The swarm losses, conservative estimate is 35,000 vessels destroyed or disabled. Their staging ground is in ruins. Intelligence suggests it will take them years to rebuild this kind of force. 1,847 ships. Thousands of crew members dead. Entire species had lost significant portions of their fleets. But without the Indomitable, without the drones, the entire Allied fleet would have been destroyed. The projections had been clear. 80% casualties if the battle continued conventionally. Sir, the drones? Lieutenant Chen asked. Marcus checked the network status. 7,000 units remaining operational. We lost 3,000 in the engagement. Each one had cost as much as a small starship to build, but that wasn't what hurt. What hurt was feeling each consciousness wink out through the neural link. They weren't alive, not really, but destroying them still felt like loss. Bring them home, he ordered. The drones turned as one and accelerated back toward the Indomitable. They moved in perfect formation, a river of silver flowing through the debris field. When they reached the ship, they began docking in the same bays they had emerged from. Panels closed, seals locked, and within minutes the Indomitable looked like an ordinary ship again. But everyone in the fleet had seen. Everyone knew. Chancellor Vorik's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. All ships form defensive perimeter and begin rescue operations. The battle is won. The swarm is defeated. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was different, respectful and maybe a little afraid. Captain Webb, the Council requests your presence for an emergency conference. We need to discuss what we have witnessed today. Marcus rubbed his aching temples. The neural interface was already disengaging, leaving him feeling hollow and disconnected. He had been part of something vast and terrible, and now he was just a man again, alone in his own head. Tell them I'll attend. he replied. He looked around the bridge at his crew. They all looked exhausted, relieved, and worried about what came next. We won the battle, Lieutenant Chen said quietly. Yes, Marcus agreed, but the real fight is just beginning. Now we have to convince the galaxy that we're not the next threat they need to worry about. The conference room aboard the Vrexian flagship was designed to intimidate. Vaulted ceilings stretched 10 meters high, covered in murals depicting ancient military victories. The table was carved from a single piece of stone taken from the Vrexian homeworld, and it could seat 100 delegates. Today, only the senior military commanders and council leadership attended. Captain Marcus Webb sat at that table, still wearing his duty uniform, feeling every eye in the room focused on him. Chancellor Vorik stood at the head of the table, his purple scales looking dull under the harsh lights. He looked like he had aged a decade in the past few hours. The casualty reports are finalized. 1,847 ships lost. Crew deaths estimated at 230,000 souls. 32 species lost more than half their contributed forces. The numbers hung in the air like a weight. Marcus had read the reports, but hearing them spoken aloud made them more real. However, Vorik continued, our projections indicated we would lose 80% of the fleet if the battle continued conventionally. That would have meant over 250,000 ships destroyed and millions dead. The swarm staging ground would have remained intact, and they would have continued their expansion across the galaxy. He turned to face Marcus directly. Instead, the swarm has been decimated. Their forces are scattered. Our intelligence indicates it will take them decades to rebuild, if they can rebuild at all. Entire species have been spared extinction. His voice dropped. Because of one human ship. Silence filled the room. Marcus could feel the weight of judgment from every delegate present. Admiral Thex of the Talaxian Collective pulsed with bioluminescence, his translation device converting the patterns to speech. Captain Webb, I watched your drones save my carrier group. 15 ships that would have been destroyed instead survived because your machines intercepted the swarm vessels attacking them. For this, the Collective expresses gratitude. Other voices joined in. The Clixar commander chittered appreciation. The Crystalline Shard representative harmonized acknowledgement. Even the Peaceful Lumina representative offered thanks. One by one, the species that had mocked humanity's single ship now praised it. But Marcus could hear the fear underneath the gratitude. Finally, the Shard delegate spoke, their voice like singing crystal. We must address the obvious question. Captain Webb, your ship deployed artificial intelligence weapons, self-directing machines capable of learning and adapting. This technology is concerning. The Clixar commander's translator made his anger clear. It is forbidden. 6 civilizations in galactic history have created true AI. 4 were destroyed by their own creations. The other 2 voluntarily destroyed their AI before it could turn on them. This is not merely concerning, it is existential threat. Marcus had known this was coming. He kept his voice calm and professional. The drones are not independent. They operate under strict control protocols. I maintained direct oversight through neural interface throughout the entire battle. They cannot act without authorization. Cannot. Vorik leaned forward. Or will not. What happens if your AI decides it no longer needs human authorization? What happens when it determines that its survival requires eliminating potential threats? He gestured around the room. What happens when it decides we are threats? The AI is constrained by programming, the Shard delegate interrupted, their crystalline body chiming with agitation. Programming that can be changed, adapted, evolved. You said yourself that the AI learns. What happens when it learns too much? Ambassador Sarah Chen, who had been sitting quietly beside Marcus, finally spoke. The Council is right to have concerns. When Earth developed AI technology, we faced the same fears. We almost destroyed the research several times. She looked around the table, but we also recognized something important. The galaxy is not a safe place. The swarm proved that today, but they are not the only threat in the universe. So you built weapons that could turn on you? The Clixar commander's translator added scorn to his words. This is madness. No, Sarah replied firmly. This is survival. Humanity learned a hard lesson over thousands of years of our own history. We are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest or the most numerous or the most technologically advanced. What we are good at, what we have always been good at, is adapting to threats and finding ways to survive against impossible odds. She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's history. Wars, genocides, near extinctions. We have fought each other for our entire existence. Every nation, every tribe, every group learning how to destroy their enemies more efficiently. It is not something we are proud of, but it is what we are. When we joined the galactic community, we knew we needed to bring something valuable to the table. So you brought death, Vorik said quietly. We brought protection, Marcus corrected. The Indomitable was designed as a defensive weapon, a last resort against threats that conventional forces could not handle. We didn't want to use it. We hoped we would never need to use it. Yet you brought it to this battle, Admiral Thex observed. Because the swarm would have destroyed the entire fleet without it. You know that is true. Marcus stood, his cybernetic implants glinting under the lights. Every species at this table contributed what they could to stop the swarm. The Vrexians brought their dreadnoughts. The Talaxians brought their carriers. The Clixar brought electronic warfare. We brought the one thing humanity excels at, the ability to wage war more efficiently than anyone else. And now the galaxy must live with that knowledge, Vorik said. We must live knowing that humanity possesses weapons that could potentially destroy us all. With respect, Chancellor, every species in the Council possesses weapons that could destroy each other. The Vrexians could glass planets. The Shards could tear holes in reality. The Talaxians could engineer biological weapons. Why should our weapons be treated differently? Because your weapons think. The Clixar commander slammed an appendage on the table. Because they learn and adapt. Because they could decide tomorrow that they no longer serve humanity. And we would have no defense. Marcus met his gaze steadily. The drones are returning to Earth. The Indomitable will be decommissioned. The AI cores will be placed in secure storage under international supervision. We have no desire to frighten the galaxy or to trigger an arms race. But the knowledge exists now. The Shard delegate harmonized sadly. Other species will attempt to recreate what you have built. And they will fail, Sarah said with complete certainty. The Indomitable project took 50 years and the combined resources of Earth's entire military establishment. The AI development alone required breakthrough advances in quantum computing, neural mapping, and cognitive architecture. It is not something that can be easily replicated. Vorik studied them both for a long moment. Very well. The Council will accept Earth's proposal to decommission the Indomitable. However, we will require complete transparency, regular inspections of Earth's military facilities, restrictions on AI research and development. Marcus felt anger flare in his chest, but he kept it controlled. Agreed. Humanity will submit to whatever oversight the Council deems necessary. We want to be trusted members of the galactic community. Trust must be earned, Captain Webb, Vorik said. Today you earned our gratitude. Trust will take longer. The conference broke up slowly, delegates returning to their ships to tend to their wounded and count their dead. Marcus stood at the window of the Vrexian flagship, watching the debris field where so many had died. The Indomitable floated in the distance, looking small and insignificant despite what it had accomplished. Sarah joined him at the window. That could have gone worse. Could have gone better, too. Marcus touched his temples where the neural implants were still aching. They're going to watch us constantly now. Every research project, every military development, everything. Yes, Sarah agreed, but we're alive. Humanity has a place in the galaxy. And when the next crisis comes, and there will be a next crisis, they will remember what we did today. Marcus pulled out his personal communicator and typed a message to Earth Command. It was heavily encrypted, coded with authorization protocols that most of the Council didn't even know existed. The message was simple. Mission accomplished. Returning home. Status on Indomitable Units 2 through 13. The reply came back within minutes. All units remain undetected. Standing by in reserve. Marcus deleted both messages and pocketed the communicator. The galaxy thought the Indomitable was unique, a one-time prototype that humanity had been forced to reveal. Let them believe that. Let them think Earth was being transparent and cooperative, because the truth was simpler and more terrifying. The Indomitable was a prototype, the first of 13 ships, not the only one. The other 12 remained hidden in classified shipyards scattered throughout the Sol system, their existence known only to the highest levels of Earth's government. Humanity had learned another important lesson throughout its long history. Never show all your cards until you absolutely have to. Are you ready to go home? Sarah asked. Marcus looked out at the stars, at the galaxy that now knew humanity existed and had some small idea of what humans were capable of. The swarm was defeated, but they would be back eventually. And there would be other threats, other challenges, other wars. Yes, he said finally, but something tells me we'll be coming back. In the depths of space beyond sensor range of the Allied fleet, a swarm scout vessel watched and recorded. The ancient intelligence that commanded the swarm analyzed the battle data with something approaching respect. This species called humanity had demonstrated capabilities worthy of study. They had taught the swarm a valuable lesson, that prey sometimes had claws. The scout vessel turned and accelerated toward dark space, carrying its data back to the queens that slumbered in the void. When the swarm returned, they would be ready for the humans and their thinking machines. The hunt would be more challenging now, more interesting. The ancient intelligence almost looked forward to it. And in the bridge of the Indomitable, as the ship prepared to jump back to Earth, Captain Marcus Webb stared at the tactical displays and wondered the same thing the swarm was wondering. When humanity and the swarm met again, when both sides were truly prepared, which would prove stronger? Biological instinct perfected over millions of years, or human ingenuity sharpened by thousands of years of war? He supposed the galaxy would find out eventually. Until then, Earth would prepare. Earth would build. Earth would train. Because that was what humanity did best. They survived. And they made sure they would keep surviving, no matter what the cost.